Welcome to the Resiliency of the Human Spirit podcast, where we share all about human triumphs for the collective's healing and empowerment. I am your host, Priscilla Hanley, and my guest today is Jocelyne Bilodeau. Jocelyne is a seasoned mind-body alignment specialist with over 25 years in social services. As the founder of Be Bold Authentically U, she passionately guides people to liberate themselves from anxiety, facilitating profound self-discovery. Jocelyne's expertise fosters authentic transformations, empowering others to embrace their true selves on their unique healing journey. Without further ado, I'm going to bring Jocelyne on now. Hi, Jocelyne.
Hello, hello.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing amazing. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. And I just want to say, wow, 25 years in social services, that's a long time.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I'm definitely a healer at heart.
Yes, that was my next sentence, that you're a natural born healer.
Yes,
Excuse me.
yes.
So I would like to start with you sharing your story about how everything started for you on your journey.
Okay, yeah, no problem. Well, thank you so much for this opportunity. Again, I really appreciate being able to come and talk and share my story with people. And everybody has their journey, right? And everybody's story is unique to them. And this is just a part of who I am and what brought me to where I am today as well. Um, Growing up, like I said, like I was a natural born healer, right? I was always gravitated to people I was the people person. If somebody was hurt, I'd find them. My dad and mom would always joke, if you're hurt or sick, Jocelyn's gonna find you because I had that in me, right? And, growing up, it wasn't that I wasn't allowed to express my emotions, but that saying, be the good girl, it's okay, keep going, right?
Mhm.
So I learned to not express my emotions at a very young age. And that in turn, it went inward. When you can't express yourself, or your emotions, the emotions have to go somewhere. So
Yeah.
at a very young age, I was in high school, I ended up with ulcers in my small and large intestine.
Wow.
Yeah, covered, not being able to eat, going to the doctor a lot, not realizing, that my mind and my emotions were affecting my body, right? It's not something that we're taught in
Hmm.
schools, or even mindfulness back then wasn't as big as it is now, right? So
Yeah.
even our parents weren't aware of those things, right? They can only do with what the knowledge that they have, and even before my journey, which I'll get into a little bit more with my children, thinking back, oh, I used to say stuff like that. I'm like, oh, okay, and you catch yourself. And at the end of the day, we're all human, right? So we do have, those learning moments, right? And
Hmm.
moving forward too, like, and then that, and instill that people pleaser in me, right? Wanting to be that person for everybody else,
Yeah.
right? So, not being able to express my emotions, I then outwardly wanted to be that person for everybody else, right? And then overcompensating all the time to being and showing up for everybody else. And I was losing myself in that process. Right. And
Yeah.
then you're going through high school and then you're picking your careers and, oh, I'm going to help people even more. So, going into the social services field. And then it's like, oh, I'm helping everybody. I'm doing a good job. Right. And I was neglecting myself. And then
Hmm.
it's like that treadmill starts going, right? Life starts happening. And then before you know, 10 years goes by and I'm not well. At this point, I have children, right? I haven't healed anything along the way, right? Because I
Hmm.
wasn't consciously aware of what was going on. And then it was like, oh, I have to work, I have to work, I have to provide, I have to provide. Meanwhile, I had children at home. And then I wasn't providing for them because I was so busy taking care of everybody else in the world and not reflecting back where it truly, I needed to be at that moment. And I know you wanted to know my turning point as well, right? Is when, I realized I was giving so much of myself to other people. I was neglecting my family. I
Hmm.
ended up on antidepressants,
Wow.
anti-anxiety medication just to try and function, right?
Okay.
Looking outside of myself for all of these answers, right? And it came a point where our family suffered a tragedy. We were infiltrated by someone who we thought, we trusted, and then it affected my children. And then that was the point where I was like, okay, I
Right.
need to be present for my family.
Right.
My children need me. And that's when I took a dive into myself and started looking at, how I could better myself and heal my wounds so that I can then help my children heal theirs moving forward.
Wow, that's a very profound journey.
It
So,
was. Yeah.
so do you mind sharing with us when you say heal yourself, right? What what was that process like for you, your healing journey?
The healing journey for me was the realization and the awakening of how much I was contributing to everything that was going on. I was living my life at effect, what we call effect, right? Blaming everything and everything around me,
Hmm.
right? So if work would ask me to stay late, I would say yes, but it was their fault,
All right.
right?
Right.
Like that type of thing. Well, they're making me stay. Well, I,
Okay.
I I had a choice. I said yes, right? At the end of the day, I still had a choice, right? But I was living in that mode of, oh my God, you didn't do that, or da, da, da. Like it was always what the other person wasn't doing,
I see.
right?
Okay.
And
Yeah.
not seeing how I was contributing to it,
Okay.
right? And I was giving my power away to the
Yes.
situations and to life and to circumstances instead of owning my own decisions, right? And where it got me here. I
Mm.
chose to not take care of myself with the belief that I needed to be there for everybody else,
Yeah.
right? That belief I brought from childhood, be the good girl, do for others, right? And then when I would do for myself, it was, oh, you're being selfish, right? It was
Yeah.
taken out of context, right? So, and it's not to say that it was wrong or bad, but those words are powerful. And as children, we take them on as our own and we formulate decisions and we make these decisions about ourselves at a very young age. So at a very young age, I believed that I needed to help everybody. My mom
Mm.
was a helper. My mom was a caregiver, right? We
Hmm.
model after the people in our world, right? So I was taking on those qualities and those attributes and those belief systems as I was growing up.
Yeah.
And I forgot to take care of myself.
Okay.
And then I forgot to take care of my family, right? Because life gets busy, right? Not realizing this is where, I am first, right? If I'm not well, if I'm not 100%, then the people in my world are not going to be, right?
True.
I was putting everything else first. My job was my center.
Yeah.
I wasn't even my center anymore. And
Right.
then things start to crumble.
So you spent 25 years in the social services, and it sounds like it was a very, very stressful job.
It's very rewarding, but yes, it is very stressful.
Okay.
There's a culture. There's a culture when you get hired in the social services field in a sense. It's like you're there 24/7,
Right.
right? So there's that expectation that when they call you, you're going to say yes, right? So I needed to really formulate strong boundaries, right? And honor myself before saying yes to people. And that's in everything that I do now. I really honor myself and go inward and ask myself before responding. I take that time. Mm.
Yeah, it's so important that you're talking about this today because I know there's a lot of people in modern day society with, the lifestyles that we lead. We need to, do well in our career. We need to get that raise, all that stuff, and it's all external projections.
Mhm.
So, can I want to talk a little bit about people pleasing tendencies? So, from my perspective, when I think about people pleasing tendencies, I think it's just my inability to say no to other people, right? That's the
Mm,
most
mhm.
obvious characteristic to
Yeah.
me, anyway, about people pleasing. But what are the less obvious characteristics of people pleasing tendencies that we should know about?
The ones that are less common that a lot of people don't know about are the gift compensation. Someone who is buying gifts for a lot of people, right?
Mhm.
So growing up, I did this often too. right? Like friends would want something. Oh, I got it for you. I'll buy it, right? Like that you're overcompensating because you're afraid of your own shortcomings. That,
Mm-hmm.
they're not going to like you or they're not going to be in your world. That, you need to make sure that they're happy. So you're going to go out of your way and buy it, even though it makes you financially, depleted or whatnot, right? You're going to go that extra mile for people, right? And another one is decision avoidance. You'll
Okay.
ask everybody else for the decision, right? So if you mess, so you can't even make a decision about what to buy, right? You take your friends with you. Oh, what do you think? And and you're always relying on their decision to make your decision,
That's a good one.
right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's not something that you would even think about,
Mm,
right? Because most people are just like, oh, she's just asking my opinion. But everybody has that person in their circle that always needs to have somebody with them to make that decision, right? That's
yeah.
a people underlying people pleasing tendency. Um, and mirroring others excessively. You're agreeing with everybody else's opinion, even though you don't believe it, because you don't want to rock the boat, right? And you
Yeah.
don't really know what your beliefs are. You're so used to and accustomed to believing and just agreeing with everybody else around you.
Yeah. As you're talking, the word fear came into my mind. I
Hmm.
think
Hmm.
when somebody has people-pleasing tendencies, I think they're just fearful of being themselves, standing up for what they believe in,
Yeah.
right? They don't have that center where they can speak up and say, no, I don't agree with this. This is my perspective. I respect your perspective, but this is my perspective.
Hmm.
It's really, it's kind of sad, really, to, I guess, to just kind of not have that self-love, right?
Yeah.
And be fearful about being who you are, who you truly
Hmm.
are.
Hmm. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Because it dims your light, right?
Yes.
And it helps. Like for myself, I know with my children, it's helped me advocate for my kids now more, knowing and realizing where I was coming from, right?
Hmm.
And now I can be a better advocate for them.
Right.
Hmm.
You mentioned earlier about boundaries.
Yes.
I know a lot of us have issues with setting boundaries, me included.
Oh, you know what? It was like when somebody first said boundaries to me, I was like, what are those? And I need to learn them.
Yeah, yeah. And setting boundaries is a healthy thing. I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of misunderstanding when people think setting boundaries is so-called like a selfish thing.
Yep. Yep.
So can you give us some techniques on how to set and maintain our boundaries?
Okay. Yeah, I can definitely talk about boundaries. Um, a common misconception too when it comes to boundaries, people when are asked something, even if they don't want to do it, they'll say no, and then they give all these reasons,
Okay.
right? It's like they have to justify their no, not realizing no is a complete sentence.
Hmm.
You don't have to give a reason after, right? We as people feel like we need to validate and almost take care of what the other person's going to feel after we said that no, right? We take on that responsibility of those feelings. And it's realizing, recognizing we're not responsible for how the other person feels based on our answer, right? And we're respecting ourselves and our energy, our time, right? On whether we're even able to give it, right? To answer. So
Hmm.
what I like to tell people and to go over with people is when somebody asks something of you, whether it's time, money, energy, a favor, whatever it is, I like to say to people just to give them, a time, right? To okay, oh, I appreciate you asking me. Can you just give me, a few minutes to, think about it, right? Giving
Hmm.
yourself that time to process. I'll get back to you shortly. Don't feel like you have to give the person an answer right then and there, right? I'll call you, in 15 minutes or just give me a few minutes, right? And then reflect. I like to
Hmm.
ask myself three questions.
Okay.
Do I have it to give? Okay. And if the answer is no, I don't ask myself any other questions.
Okay, understood. Okay.
Okay. If it's yes, do I want to give it? Is my second question,
Okay.
right? Do I actually want to, right? I have it, I can, but do I want to, right? There's a difference there, right? And how it feels, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if it's a no, I said yes to the first question, I have it. My next question, I said no, I don't go any further.
Okay.
But if I said yes, then under what circumstances am I willing to do it? Right. So for instance, if somebody, were to call me for an extra shift, right? Yeah, I could do it. Yeah, I know. Do I want to? Right? Really think
Mm-hmm.
about that. Do I want to? Right? Yeah, I can. Yeah, I can. Right? But under what circumstances? It's a 3 to 10. You know what? My kids don't get home till 4. I can do maybe a 5 to 10 or a 6 to 10. Then it's on them to whether they want to accept your offer,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
if work is hard pressed for people, they're like, yes, I'll take anything, right? And then I'm honoring myself.
Right.
I've given them the time that I'm able to do it, right? And then it puts the pressure off you, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of a guideline that I go through to figure out whether, I'm honoring myself and those boundaries.
So what's your perspective when it comes to family? Because, when you got your employer, you can say no without feeling bad, right? But then when it comes to your family and then it
Yeah,
comes to your children and you're like, oh,
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
tired.
yeah.
I'm
It's yeah, that's hilarious. I know. It's totally different, right? Because there's more
mm-hmm,
emotion there. You
mm-hmm,
feel like you're obligated, right? And another part to setting boundaries is learning how to set boundaries, right? A lot of people, like when I teach boundaries, there's a specific, like, little bit of a formula that I walk people through, right? So for my kids, for instance, them being rambunctious and stuff like that, they like to go in my room, right? And when they get in there, ooh, you never know what's gonna happen, right? So, setting a boundary with them with that is like, I love you, and this is mommy's room. We don't jump on the bed.
mm-hmm.
If you continue to jump on my bed, you will no longer be allowed in my room, right? It's not me going, get off my bed.
Yeah,
But you see the difference in the tone,
right.
right? So I teach my clients, people to, say like, oh, I respect your opinion, and this is my decision. If you continue to badger me about this, I'm going to end the conversation,
Right.
right? And you say it 3 times because there are people that are going to continue, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And it's, I respect your opinion and this is my decision, right? And you follow through with it on the third time, whether it's like, I'm going to leave the room, you leave, right? I'm leaving
Yeah.
now, right? Or it's like, even on the phone, like, if you continue with this conversation, I'm going to hang up. Like you've warned them, right? So you're giving them your boundary and you're telling them what you're going to do,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it must be tested 3 times. And when you are implementing boundaries, it's like everybody coming together and playing crazy eights. I bet you everybody at that table plays it a different way, right? You're changing the rules of the game in a sense when you're creating new boundaries. So it's
Right.
being patient with yourself
Mm-hmm.
and being patient with other people. Because other people are like, wait a minute, I was allowed to do that 2 days ago, right?
But not anymore.
Not anymore, right? And it's like, and I tell my kids too, we teach people how to treat us, right? Boundaries are important. If you allow something now, what are you going to allow in 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
right? With relationships, with people, everything. You're setting the tone on how people treat you by what you allow, right? And
Yes.
that's key. That's huge with relationships, with everything that you do, work relationships, personal relationships, friendships, being able to communicate that and your boundaries create stronger and healthier relationships.
Yeah. Setting boundaries is a way of self-empowerment.
Oh, it is
We
huge.
don't realize it, but you are speaking your truth and you are speaking up for yourself. So
Yeah.
my perspective is that it's really self-empowerment, and we should teach our kids about boundaries early on in life rather than later.
Yes, yes. Because and I see it, right? Like I have a 14-year-old, right? So
Hmm.
she would rather avoid,
Okay.
right? So, and in using this language with her, it empowers her, right? Because she'll say, well, my friend, because I'm younger than my friends, they feel like they're my mom, right? They try to, and I just give her the framework, right?
Hmm.
I cherish our friendship, and I already have a mom. Just kind of putting it that way, like, if you continue to tell me what to do, it's going to wreck our friendship,
Right.
right? And
Hmm.
empowering her that way. And then she looks at me, she's like, yeah, that sounds so much better than what it did in my head. I'm like, yep, it did, didn't it? Right? It's
Yeah.
empowering them to be able to speak for themselves, right? And I'm still there supporting them. It's like, okay, if you can't do the whole thing, you do this part, and then I'll follow up in the back end and do this.
All right.
Right? So it
Hmm.
empowers them that they're not completely alone doing it, right? They're still learning, right?
Yeah.
And navigating. And, I just started my journey 3 years ago, right? So my oldest is 14, right? So a lot of my paradigms, a lot of my behaviors, a lot of my beliefs have shifted, right?
Hmm.
So she's actually old enough to see that transition as well, right? So she's learning, oh, mom does not reacting that way now. Okay. So it's a learning curve for her too. She's like, you're not mad. I'm like, no, what did you learn? And she's looking at me, you've never asked me that before. So it's a different environment now for them. Like I said, it strengthens our relationships as well with everybody.
Oh, yes, yes, I believe so. Yeah.
Hmm.
So I wanna, before we got on, we talked about um timeline therapy and NLP.
NLP. Yes.
Yes. I
Yes.
know those are techniques that you're very
Yes.
familiar with. Can
Yes.
you give us an explanation of what, we'll start with NLP. So what is
Yeah,
NLP?
I can definitely. Yeah. So I'm certified as a master NLP coach, timeline therapist, hypnotherapist, and Reiki master, right? So all of those I use um, when helping people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So NLP stands for Neuro Linguistics Programming.
Okay.
It's like the user manual for your brain and language. It helps us understand how our mind works and how we communicate with ourselves and others around us. Because
Okay.
we all have our own um, rep system, so to speak, how we use language. So someone could be more visual and someone can be more auditory, depending on
Mm-hmm.
the language that they use. So, if you're more auditory and say, oh, do you see what I mean? I'm going to say, no, I don't see that, but I hear what you're saying,
Right.
right?
Yes.
Because I'm more auditory, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it helps us identify those patterns and in our thoughts, our behavior, and our language to make positive changes in our lives. So it's a toolkit of techniques that helps us overcome obstacles, boost confidence, and achieves our goals, right? So all these little techniques use our visualizations, like communication and words to change how we're thinking about ourselves.
Okay.
Right? I mentioned cause and effect. That's something that we go over in NLP as well, because it's a mindset on how we are seeing ourselves.
Okay. Say, for example, you have a client who is in emotional distress.
Mhm.
How are you going to use NLP to assist your client who's in emotional distress?
Okay, so NLP helps us to establish that positive self-talk so that you feel less stressed. So what I would use in with NLP would be like anchoring,
Okay.
right?
And
So I would establish an anchor with my client, and that's something that they can touch whenever that brings back those the emotions of confidence,
I see.
empowerment, joy, dropping on the floor laughing, right? Like when I do this with people, by the end of it, we're crying because we're laughing so hard,
Oh,
right?
wow.
And so, athletes, they
Mm-hmm.
won't go out. I'm not going out. I don't have my lucky underwear on, right? They've anchored that feeling of power, of like, conquering, like they're like in charge of the world to those shorts. So
Mm,
whenever they put it on, they go out, they feel like they can play, like they have all this power, right?
okay.
Nothing can deplete them. So I empower my clients with an anchor like that. So whenever they're feeling that way, they can fire it. It's on their body somewhere.
Oh, okay.
They touch it and it's like it jolts them because we've anchored like 15 empowerment feelings on that anchor. And it
Wow.
jolts them to feeling it. And it's something that I get them to use on a daily basis.
Okay.
Right. So for a whole week, I'll task them. You have to fire that anchor at least twice a day, right? To overpower, like, right. And then when they're laughing or if they're feeling that, I tell them to grab their anchor, repower it up, because
Mm,
that's going to get you through those moments. Right. And if somebody's feeling like stuck or unmotivated, I use anchoring to get them out of that. Right. So it shifts those feelings of
okay.
frustration or, worry, whatever's going on to get them out of feeling that way.
So you mentioned the anchoring can be anywhere on your body. Can it also be maybe, can you use a crystal
Yep.
to
Yep.
anchor?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so if,
Yes.
for example, if I'm feeling stressed out and I've grab my crystal and, play with it and,
Hmm.
imagine that I'm confident again and I'm happy and calm.
Yeah.
So is that an example of an
Yeah.
anchor?
Yeah. Yeah, it is because
Okay.
you're anchoring that. And in those moments, you're really feeling it. Right. So when
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing this with a client, like I need to recall a moment when I was confident, or else you're not going to feel it.
I see.
Oh, if I'm
Okay.
like, oh, remember a time when you're just so confident, so confident. Do you feel confident when I'm doing that?
No,
No.
no.
Like, remember that time you're just so confident and you just conquered the world and you're just like going and like, you feel it all like my whole demeanor changes.
Yes.
Right. So when
Yeah.
I'm doing this, I have to lose my own self as well. Right.
Right.
And just
Okay.
be that person. Right. And call on those emotions. Right. Or
Mm,
when I was so happy and I was just so excited. Oh my God, I'm just so excited. Can't wait to tell you. Right. I have to feel those emotions. Right.
okay.
And make it genuine so that person feels it too. Right. So when we
Yeah.
do an anchor, it's a fun thing to do. Like
I
we're
see.
like, and then I always say the last one, I want to anchor falling down laughing, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I make them remember a time when they were almost pissing themselves laughing, right? Because that's powerful.
Yeah,
Laughter is powerful. So
it
you're
is.
anchoring confidence, joy, powerful. You're like all those powerhouse emotions on this anchor. So you can't
Okay.
help but feel that emotion when you touch it, right? So typically we start with a knuckle and then we move it, right?
I see.
Somewhere where the person can just easily touch it. That's not going to be misfired either, right? You don't want it to, you're having, intimate times and somebody touches it and you're all of a sudden, you're like, no, no, we don't want that, right? So you
No.
want it somewhere where it's, where it is. You can, casually touch it and just like, oh, I feel better now, right? Because it jolts you with that emotion,
Mm,
right?
okay.
So that's a way that we can switch that when you're feeling down, right? Before we, what I like to say, we go up the crazy tree, right? We're all human. We've all done it, right? Me included, right? So it's just remembering that we had those, those little tools. So that would be one tool in the NLP toolbox that
Okay.
I would use and empower my clients.
Wonderful. Okay.
Mhm.
What about timeline therapy? That sounds like it's something totally different.
Yes, timeline therapy is a little bit different. Yeah, it's very different. It's using your imagination as well and visualizations. So with timeline therapy, it's an approach that helps people release negative emotions and limiting beliefs from their past. So
Okay.
it's like hitting the delete button on those
Oh,
unwanted emotions. So working with the concept of a timeline of your events, it allows you to let go of baggage from the past, allowing you to move forward with clarity, confidence, and emotional freedom. So it's like decluttering your mind and your heart to make room for positive growth. So everybody stores their memories and their life events along a timeline, and we
mm-hmm.
all store it in relation to our body,
Yep.
right? So you're going to store your time and the way you see your events different than how I store it. And that's perfectly fine, right? So visualizing our timeline of our life, I float you along the timeline and we release anger, sadness, guilt, hurt, rage, shame. Like we release the seven major negative emotions,
Right. Okay.
right? We don't do mild, like frustration, annoyance. We don't do any of that. That's NLP stuff, right?
Okay.
We can clear that out with the smaller techniques. This is for those big emotions, right? So if you think about the first time you felt anger, you would have felt anger within the first 8 years of your life, not
Mm,
really consciously being aware of it, right? So think of it as a string of pearls, a pearl necklace, right? That first pearl being the first time you felt anger. And every time you experience something similar, another pin of anger, another pin of anger, right? So every time you felt that, it's creating a string of pearls,
mm-hmm.
right? And fast forward 20 years, and something happens and you lose it, right? We all had those moments where we just lost it. And you're like, oh my God, like I totally overreacted there. Like, what was that? That was 20 years of anger coming woof, right down on that event
Right.
is what happened because
Yes.
we don't learn to release it properly.
Mm-hmm.
Anger is the emotion that we feel the most, and we're not even consciously aware of it. Somebody cuts you off in line, ping of anger. Like every time somebody crosses your boundary, that's anger, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're not even consciously aware of it. So timeline therapy allows you to go back to the first event that your unconscious mind says it's safe to release, and it will release from that, and it'll release all the anger and all the events all the way back to now.
Okay. So question, if
Mm-hmm.
it's in the unconscious mind and you're going back to
Mm-hmm.
the first occurrence of anger, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which maybe your client doesn't even remember. So
They don't have to.
are you putting them in hypnosis? No?
No, like not hypnosis per se, but visualization, and I'm bringing them into their heart space.
Okay.
Right. So when I'm doing timeline therapy, it would be, on a screen like this, you and
Mm-hmm.
I would just get you to breathe. You'd close your eyes. I would get you nice and relaxed. Yes, you'd be relaxed. There would be that relationship between the two of us, right? I'm not
Okay.
going to get on a call. Okay, we're doing timeline therapy. And you don't even know me. You'd be like,
Right.
what? I'm not talking to you right now. Right.
Yeah.
It's done after a few sessions. And, I get them in that relaxed space, right? And they've already learned how they store time because we've gone over that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're already comfortable with that. We've already did a little bit of an example, right, on how to float, right? And it's the first answer. Your unconscious mind knows everything. It stores everything. We're just not consciously aware of it, right? So when you are relaxed and in your heart, and I ask the question, it's the first answer. So I will say, if you were to know how old were you, and then they just say a number and they're like, I didn't even, then like that, just go with it, right? You don't even have to see the event. You don't even have to be consciously aware of what happened. You
Mm-hmm.
just know that at 3, I felt anger. I don't know what happened. That's okay. We're going there. We're clearing it. It's gone,
Okay.
right? You
Yeah.
don't have to consciously, and we not. You don't consciously remember every single detail, right? It's just
Mm-hmm.
that's how our unconscious mind stores everything.
Yeah. Sounds like you're communicating with your subconscious mind.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
ties in the hypnotherapy, right? We
Right.
all have that connection, and if you get quiet enough, you're going to find what you're looking for. Your
Yes.
unconscious mind's going to show you in a picture where it is,
Yeah.
right? If I get quiet enough and ask myself, okay, where did I leave my glasses? I'm gonna see a picture. Oh, on the table there. I'm like, okay, and I go and it's there,
Oh, wow.
right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just being quiet and trusting yourself and going inward, right? We're too busy at trying to think about it, and our mind's going million miles a minute. It's not going to find it, right? Because we're
Yes.
consciously trying. Everything is Our unconscious mind allows us to do things on autopilot in a sense as well, right? So when you consciously try to do something, you tend to trip up a little bit, right? Because you're
Mm.
like, oh, well, because you get all uncomfortable because our unconscious mind knows how to do it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Our un subconscious mind is really
Yes.
powerful, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And that's where it's like using it to help us move forward, right? And programming it, right? A lot of people don't program their mind before they go to bed, right? And it's
Mm,
just a matter of, I like to have a journal beside my bed and write out all the positive things that happened that day.
yes, I
And
do that.
then, right? And then my unconscious mind is thinking about all these positive things instead of, oh my God, I didn't pick up this. Oh my God, I said that to the husband and he was so mad. Right? Like, why does your unconscious mind want to replay all that stuff while you sleep? Right?
Exactly. For me, I practice gratitude before going to bed. And first thing when I wake up in
Yep.
the
Yep.
morning, I say thank you for this day. Thank you for my existence because I'm still alive.
Right?
Right,
Right? And the thing is, our unconscious mind wants a job. It's the faithful servant. So
right.
think of it that way. Our unconscious mind never sleeps. So if
No.
you're telling your unconscious mind, please restore my body to its blueprint of perfect health, it will go to work while you're sleeping, restoring your body to its blueprint of perfect health. Your unconscious mind holds your blueprint of perfect health. My
Hmm.
unconscious mind holds my blueprint of perfect health, right? It's
Right.
different for each person.
Yes.
Give your
Yeah.
unconscious mind a job to do. It wants to. It wants to co-create with us all the time, right? So,
Hmm.
yeah, that's what I tell my clients to do.
Wonderful. This is fascinating. I might want to try timeline therapy just because I'm curious.
Right?
Yeah.
It's such a shift, and you see it in your client and the clients when you do it because their whole aura changes, right? And using energy as well, like I open up that energetic space as well. So I combine the Reiki energy
Mm-hmm.
in helping release as well, because
Yeah.
it brings in that soothing, gentle compassion, right? And people feel supported and loved when they're doing these techniques because I've cocooned them in this Reiki energy. Not a lot of people who have these modalities have Reiki as well, right? So
Mm-hmm.
there's a different energetic feeling when I'm doing my sessions.
Wonderful.
Hmm.
All right, let me shift now to resources.
Yeah, resources. Okay.
Yeah. So, what great resources can you recommend to our audience that helped you in your life and or healing journey?
Okay. Well, what really helped me in the beginning is I did hire myself a mentor, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I did do a lot of different programs, and energy healing, really going inward and doing a lot of energy healing, whether it was a Reiki session with somebody or I got myself certified as well.
Right.
That was the huge thing for me on my healing journey. That's what started my transformation, was doing a Reiki course, my level 1 and 2,
Okay. Yeah,
right? So
me too.
that's what was my starting, my foundation, right? And realizing how much power it had within myself to transform myself, right? I did my level 1 and 2, like literally 15 minutes out of surgery.
Oh, wow.
I went for a hernia surgery and they were wheeling me out and I was 15 minutes late. I was yelling at the nurse, get my laptop, get me that. I'm in training. I got to do this, right? But you know what? Best thing ever. I didn't have to use any of the pain meds. Any,
Nice.
like I was on a drip and the nurse came back and she was like, you didn't. I was like, I didn't need to. And she looked at me, she's like, you just had like a major hernia surgery. I was like, yeah, I know. I'm in my energy bubble. I'm good. Right? And came off those a day early, had like I was out of the hospital a day early before I
Very
was even
nice.
supposed to be out because I was like energetically healing myself. So that was huge for me, right? That was that beginning. And a book that I really liked, Happy Pocket Full of Money.
Oh, nice.
Yes, the title is deceiving, right? Because you think, oh, I'm gonna get a big pocket full of money. It's on mindset.
Ah,
And it brings in like quantum physics where people can actually understand it, right? There was a chapter or two where I was like, okay, I'm gonna reread that one, right? Just to really so it can sink in. And what I liked about it is that it had questions at the back per chapter, reflective questions,
hmm.
right? Where you would go back and you would read certain things and it just gave a different spin on things, on how I like see my life too, and how I can do like a quantum leap and how mindset works. So it was just a good eye opener.
How nice. Now I'm
Mhm.
gonna check out that book.
Yes, I would. It's a good one. Yeah, yeah.
Tell us more about how you started your business and the services and programs that you provide to the collective right now.
Like I said, I was working in the social services, right? I was
Mm,
really becoming really burnt out. And when our families, suffered that trauma, it was a wake-up call.
okay.
It was like, I'm not home. And it really hurt me as a mom, right? Like, as parents, we want the best for our kids. We never
Yep.
want them to, be in danger or hurt. And that was what was key for me. It was like, okay, my child got hurt. And now it's
Mm,
like, okay, I need to step up. I need to be here for her.
okay.
And I, hired myself a mentor, and I wasn't in a good place either. And I was on antidepressants. I was, not in a good place, and I wasn't showing up for them,
Mm,
right? So with the coach and the Reiki is what really helped me heal my own past trauma, right, from being bullied and, the things that I carried from childhood. And then I was then able to step up and be there for her, right? Whether it was getting her resources, right, to help her, where
mhm.
I was just supporting her in the sidelines and she knew that I was there. So it reinforced our relationship at that point. We had to rebuild our relationship as mother and daughter,
Okay.
right? So that's where I started, was really rekindling that and moving forward and supporting her in her healing journey as well. Because I've now, broken away those generational cords, right?
Right.
From all the healing that I've done. And they're noticing that too. So that was a pivotal shift with me. And I left the full-time job. It was draining me. I was not being supported, right? If I did need something or I needed time off, nobody would help me. But I was always saying yes for everybody, right? So it wasn't aligned with me anymore.
Mm,
I, was late. I was like, and I didn't care, right? And I was always early. Like I was always prompt. Like I was always like the supervisor, like you're like 20 minutes early. I'm like, yeah, that's okay, because I was happy. I love, but by the
mhm.
end, I was a half an hour late and I didn't care. I just strolled, like you could tell in my behavior that I
Yes.
was not present anymore.
Mhm.
Right. And then it was like, I'm not happy. Right. And then somebody said, well, just go back to work. And my whole body, like I was if I was gonna vomit. I was like, I can't go back. I can't.
Mm,
My body was telling me, Jocelyn, enough's enough.
right.
You are where you need to be. And then shortly after my son was diagnosed with autism, and having the background I have as a child and youth worker, being very educated, right,
Mhm.
with different disabilities, it gave me that opportunity now to show up for him and what he needed because he was struggling,
Right.
right? So that healing helped me now show up for him where I wasn't freaking out because we take on the emotions from our kids too, right? If
Mhm.
they're not doing well and if they're suffering, as parents, we're like, oh, I don't want you to. And then you think, oh my God, I felt like that as a kid too. And then everything just comes back, right?
You're
So
right.
it allowed me to really be like, okay, this is about him, right? I've healed my childhood stuff. I'm here for him now,
Okay.
right? And it's like, so that was key for me. That was my big shift. And now, I'm home. I'm able to help other people and connect with them because I've been there. I know what it's like to be depressed, suffering from anxiety, overwhelm, burnout, like all of it. Like
Mhm.
that, like I was a big hot mess, right? Like a really like a big hot mess, avoiding things. And then, the husband's like, you weren't like that when we met, over the years,
Yeah.
he's like, he saw it too. He saw me
Mhm.
disintegrate, right? And now it's like everything is just shifting again. They're like, he's like, oh, okay, that's the woman, right?
You're back.
So yeah, that was why I do this. And like I said, like I'm a healer at heart. I love people. Like it's a part of my energy. Like if I'm not with people, it's like I'm seeking people out because I need that engagement, but I also need my alone time, and I recognize that more now.
Right.
Mhm.
So from our conversation, I take it that you offer timeline therapy,
Yeah.
NLP, Reiki. Do you offer any classes?
I do teach Reiki. I certify Reiki
Okay.
level 1, 2, master, and Holy Fire Karuna Reiki as well now. So
Oh,
I
very
do
nice.
all of the levels within the Usui Holy Fire.
Okay, wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
So where can people find you?
Oh, they can find me. They can find me on Facebook. I am
Okay.
on Facebook, yes. I am on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. I have my website, Be Bold Authentically You. So my programs are on there. You can book a healing session on there with me. And then yeah, is it on my Instagram, my link tree? I have a free meditation on there, which helps release
Mm.
anxiety, which uses the timeline technique.
Okay.
I incorporated the timeline technique in releasing anxiety in that meditation. So it kind of floats you out into the future in
Oh,
this.
wow.
Yes,
I'll
right.
download that.
So we can clear out that anxiety that's coming up, right? And then I also have on my link tree, I'm pretty sure it's still there. It's like a healing experience, right? So I guide you into it's a infused Reiki. I infuse all of my healings and all my recordings with Reiki. So the energy is walking you through a guided healing.
Mm.
So it's like a little bit of a meditation that I walk you through, and then I'm quiet and you just absorb the energy. So it's like a little bit of a test, I guess, a little bit of a taste of a healing. So
Okay.
that's there as well. So yeah, they can definitely download those, check it out, and yeah, if it resonates with them, then they can, book a call with me or a healing. I'd like to offer people a discount that's watching your podcast. Like if they message me, say if they want a healing, I'm going to give them 50% off. They just have to message me, your podcast.
Okay.
And when they book, and I will give them 50% off of the healing.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
yeah, you're
That's so
welcome.
kind
Yeah,
of you.
you're welcome. You're welcome. Well, I believe that it's a give and take, right? Type of thing, and I love offering it, right? Because then I get healed too, right? It's
Mm.
healing the collective, right? And that's what I love to share,
Yes.
because when you're doing Reiki on somebody, you're healing yourself, and then you're healing the world,
Yes.
right? Because you're
Yes.
doing it together,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's that group healing. So I love doing those as well. So I do offer group healings on my Facebook. I offer free events as well. So if they, follow me, they'll see I try to do, an event every couple weeks. So
Okay.
but yeah, if they follow me, I keep offering things, right? So they can
Okay.
definitely, come into my world in that way as well.
Wonderful. I'll put everything in the show notes so people
Mhm,
can find
mhm.
you easily. So, in the few minutes that we have, before we wrap up, I have a signature closing question that I ask all my guests. So
Okay.
this is the question, okay? What
Okay.
is your closing message for humanity to help in our collective healing and empowerment?
The message that I'd like to share is be you. And at the end of the day, we're all human. We were all cut from the same cloth, right? We all have uniqueness that we bring,
Mhm.
right? And working together, right? The more love and light that you can send out to the world, the more it's going to come back to you as well, right? And lifting that person up beside you instead of shooting them down. Right. And I think coming from that perspective that, we're all in this together, then we can grow and help each other together. I come from a time where it was a lot of competition, right? It doesn't feel good, right? And there's a lot of not so good things going on in the world,
Mhm.
right? So for
Yes.
me, it's even during my rituals, like I send love out to the world, right? And if we can all just, take a few minutes every morning, and it's like that Care Bear stare, right? Like my generation watched Care Bear, so I don't know if a lot of people are gonna know, but take that Care Bear stare and just go poof, right? Beam out love, right? Like
Yes.
just take that deep breath of love and just beam it out to the world. You don't even have to be in with anybody. Just that thought and that energy that you're bringing through your heart, and beaming it out, it's going to go like worldwide.
Yes.
Somebody is going to feel it energetically, right? As the collective, we all feel that energy.
Yes, we are all intricately connected,
Yeah,
right? When you heal yourself, like what you say, we're actually healing the collective
yeah, we are.
because we are part of the collective.
Yeah, we are all connected.
Yes. Oh, I really, really enjoyed this conversation, Jocelyn. Thank you
Oh, I know.
so much for taking the time to talk with me today. And for everybody who's watching or listening, thank you for your time as well. And till next time, bye for now, everybody.
Bye for now.